Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. This might be the last one of these guys for a while, just because this is sort of like the equivalent. I was just kind of thinking to myself, this is sort of like the equivalent, the guy equivalent of like super expensive like jewelry or something, or like shoes or handbags, I guess, for women. I mean, this is basically like jewelry for like Star Wars nerds or guys, right? And there's only so much you can get of these, so you have to slow down somewhere sometime. And this is probably going to be the last one I do for a while. Take a breath, pause, examine sort of where to go from here. But I bought 3 lightsabers in 6 weeks after not having bought any in like 9 years, so I guess making up for lost time. Definitely took a bit of a hit though, waiting this long. You win some, you lose some. Some things really drop in value, other things really rise in value. And the Master Replicas lightsabers are definitely one of those that have risen in value. So as you can see, this is the Attack of the Clones Count Dooku signature edition lightsaber, limited edition of 1000, signed by Sir Christopher Lee. And they made 1,000 of these. And getting this one, not quite as epic a story as some of the other the other 2 sabers, but still very special. So I guess I'll start like with everything else, talk about how I acquired this. An interesting little story, at least for me. So again, there's a 3,500 of the regular version and 1,000 of the signature edition ones, which is rare, but not quite as rare as, for instance, the 500 that they had for the version 2 Luke signature edition, or the 500 of the David Prowse Return of the Jedi, for instance. There are more rare out there, but there's a lot of these. There are more of these out there, but the condition varies. This is one of the oldest ones in the entire Master Replicas line. In fact, from previous videos, and I'll show this again, this was released in parallel with the Star Wars A New Hope Episode 4 dual signature Darth Vader lightsaber. The 2 of them were released concurrently. Its retail price was $499, and the signature edition does come with, of course, the acrylic case and the mirror base. And so when I wanted to get it, there was an auction on eBay that just ended, and it was $2,400 or best offer, and a best offer had been accepted. Of course, on eBay, you don't know what that best offer was, but the condition of that lightsaber seemed to be pretty good. And then shortly thereafter, another version was made available. And this one was made available through Neat Stuff Collectibles, the same company that I bought my Mace Windu signature edition from. And they also had, along with many other lightsabers for auction, they had a Count Dooku signature edition. It was complete in box, but the quality was frankly just atrocious. For those of you who don't know, at least for these Master Replicas sabers, the leather grip has been a problem. The infamous problem with the Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader lightsabers was the film, or the little rubberized film that they placed over the T-tracks on those lightsabers. So both the Luke New Hope and Empire Strikes Back had these T-tracks, as did all of the Vader versions from episode 3 all the way to episode 6. and these rubber coating would degenerate to various extent, to various degrees, depending again on how you took care of your lightsaber, the humidity and temperature of where you display them, etc. And for Count Dooku, there were no T-track, obviously T-tracks, but there is this leather grip, and in a certain number of them, just depending on again location, the leather would lift off. The glue underneath it would just not be, I guess, tight enough. Over the years and decades, it would get dry and brittle, and then the leather would lift off, and that would be a problem. I guess you could always super glue it back down. I've of course never had the opportunity to do so, but both limited and signature edition had this problem with the leather basically lifting off. And the one on eBay was an especially egregious version of this. The entire top of the saber, the leather had completely separated. And so you had to be tasked with being comfortable enough to re-glue it. And on top of that, if you kind of blew up the picture, there were just a lot of little tiny dust particles, little tiny scratches. Again, maybe the photos made it worse than it looked, but certainly it didn't seem like the quality was, where you wanted it to be. And, people agreed. It finally sold for, I think, $1,350, which is way, way below what a signature edition really normally of this particular piece would go for. When you throw in, eBay and PayPal fees, it was just, probably about $1,100 to $1,200 take home for that one. So, anyways, in the meantime, I couldn't even bring myself to bid on that. I just did not want to do that. So in the meantime, I did come across kind of an interesting opportunity, and I don't really know how it came about, because I contacted this gentleman on the rebelscum.com forums, where there's kind of a robust trade still in Master Replicas collectibles, and I don't quite know how the conversation started, because he had a lot of really, really good signature editions that unfortunately I had just missed out on. I must have messaged him to just ask about something else, and then we exchanged information. We're just kind of texting, and I think I think we kind of chatted about the Mace Windu, because ironically both of us were in a bidding war over that without even knowing. And I was mentioning how I really wanted a Dooku after the Mace, and then he just kind of casually said, "Oh, well, you can have the one that I sold." And it gets kind of convoluted, because I guess the situation was that he had sold the Dooku lightsaber to somebody else, and that person was paying him on an installment plan. But for whatever reason, that person actually changed his mind or something, and would have rather gone for the Anakin signature edition. And so because of that, the Dooku became available, and so I jumped at it and I locked it down. And so he simply just transferred the money that the other guy was paying for the Dooku, and he transferred it to the Anakin. And so because the Anakin then was sold to the guy took the money. He was originally going to pay for this, and he paid for the Anakin, and this became available, so I jumped on it. And so, this person, who I won't name him, because again, I don't know his preference for these things, but, he is a very, very kind of a careful anal collector. And, this is definitely like one of the best Dooku signature edition lightsabers that's out there. There's a couple of really, really good ones. And again, the quality varies quite a bit. But there's a couple of ones out there, like the one by, I think, Star Wars Replicas or whatever, by Gabe. He has one. It's okay. It's good. The lightsaber is good, but his signature plaque was not too good. And there's varying degrees. The other two by Alex L. and Booba Fit or Booba Feet or whatever, they have 2 unboxings, and they both ironically each one of those guys bought theirs from the same guy. And that guy, like, I guess, is a huge like collector. He has like multiple versions of these. Although after selling 2 Dookus to both Boba Fett and also Alexel, I think he only has 2 left, one for himself and maybe 1 extra. He didn't want to sell that one, from what I know. So basically, those 2 versions are really, really good, pristine versions. Like basically, essentially, I think almost unopened or open just to check. But this one that I got from my source is definitely, I think, one of the cleanest, nicest ones. He took tons of photos, very, very, meticulous inspecting things. And so this is essentially, I think, definitely a near mint 9.5 out of 10. The lightsaber itself, we'll look at together. I didn't see any obvious scratches or smudges or anything bad. The signature plaque itself was really good. It was not even opened. I actually opened it and affixed the plaque to the stand. But just to show you that oxidation and tarnishing are inevitable, even completely unopened, there was like a little tiny dot up top. There was one in the corner, and on the back there was 4 or 5 oxidation dots. And so it's just, it's inescapable. Whether you display or not, oxidation happens, and you do have to do your best to try to polish it out. So it's not something that you can really technically avoid. But in terms of the actual signature area, it's like a really, really nice, clean signature area, nice signature by Sir Christopher Lee. And we'll go into that when we actually take a look at the plaque in some detail. So this is definitely one of the better plaques out there. And the case is good, no obvious cracks or even scratches. I just noticed, for instance, like my Empire Strikes Back Vader signature edition has like, a few very small, minute scratches on the case, which you can't even see when it's normal. But when you put it against a black base, all the little scratches will show up. So I didn't even see any scratches on this one. You can see that there's definitely a little bit of yellowing along the edges, which is, again, unfortunately unavoidable in these 20+ year collectibles. The acrylic does tend to yellow. This is a bit more of an extreme version of this yellowing. And then the mirror base, all mirror bases have these little minute scratches. And this one's no exception, but again, so minute that you can't really even see it, and should be able to be polished out nicely with a little bit of brilliant eyes, okay, for instance. So that's how I came upon this. He was very nice. He sent it UPS, 2-day delivery, so it was here in less than 2 days. Very well packed, original packaging. So definitely, I paid a little bit extra for it. I paid $25.50 all in, including the insurance, the UPS, shipping, handling, all of this stuff. And you could get, I think, a so-called as new or near mint version in the low 2000s, depending on how things go about. But there is quite a swing in price, right? There's quite a swing in price. And the reason for that is there's so many variables that affect that. Like, do you have a complete in-box version? How's the leather grips? We just talked about whether there's damage or not. And there's varying types of damage. I mean, a lot of the grips raise up, even if it's like 0.5 millimeter or a little bit. You can see it literally beginning to tent up and lift up from the underlying glue. So that's a big problem or a big thing to look for these type of lightsabers. What about scratches, smudges, fingerprinting, things like that on the actual piece itself? And then, of course, the quality of the acrylic, the quality of the mirror base, the quality of the signature area, the plaque, the tarnishing. So there's so many things that go into, kind of the complete picture. And that's why prices can range from a low of $13.50 for one that's in, quite frankly, really bad shape, or one that's in good shape but is missing the original shipper, missing a whole bunch of things, versus like, say, pristine, brand new out-of-box versions. I can tell you that even though it's not advertised on like Alexel or Boba Fett's channel, for the sort of condition of this, where it's almost like brand new out of the box, I'm sure that the going rate was in the high twos, maybe even low 3,000 range, if you want something truly, completely, utterly perfect, pristine, top to bottom, complete. So you have to kind of decide what's important to you and what you're willing to tolerate or live with, and then you go with that, right? You go with that, and you get it. Okay, so here it is. This is the Dooku lightsaber. So before we go into that, let's just take a look at the paperwork. So as usual, you have the envelope with all of the things in there. Let's just go through this one more time. So this is the little product catalog that was given with all of the first generation Master Replicas lightsabers. So you can clearly see that the limited edition, the inaugural limited edition versions was the Vader New Hope and the Dooku. I mean, I don't know how they decided that, but there you go. Pretty hilarious. Look at that. $600 for a dual signature edition. I mean, how crazy is it that how does that happen? It's like they just, the brochure, like honestly, the brochure for these early lightsabers were printed, but before they even made the lightsabers, it's already pre-sold out. Like, what? Like, this is sold out, and then of course the Count Dooku one, signature edition, limited to 1,000, also completely sold out, So that's kind of crazy. Like, before they even made this pamphlet, it already sold out, I guess online or something like that. So I think that was pretty insane. So here's the Dooku one. You can see that it's MSRP $499. Of course, all of these are now like, quintuple, sextuple the price. It's constructed from machine and die cast metal components. And it has all of the weight. I can tell you though that the Dooku lightsaber weighs a lot more than the Vader version, than the Vader New Hope lightsaber. So anyways, here's the brochure. I did not show you that before. And then we have the limited warranty. And then of course, this is the most important paperwork. Nice black certificate of authenticity. We're gonna open it up. And you can see the great Sir Christopher Lee. This is an awesome picture of him signing. There you go. Really cool. And then on the inside, of course, there's a whole bunch of further paperwork. You'll have seen all of this before. So this is to join the Collector Society, get exclusive first dibs on a lot of their signature edition stuff. Here's a registration card. And then again, the blank piece of paper and the one with the MR logo on it, no doubt to protect the certificate of authenticity right over here, and the seal with this signature. So it still came with this, as all of the first generation ones did, the early ones in 2002, signed by Christopher Lee. And you can read that at your leisure. And then we'll come over here. You can see the signature edition, and we'll go up slowly so you can read yourself. All of the silver components are polished and heavily nickel chrome plated for durability, which is true. That is true. Very heavy, very well done. The black grip panels are composed of injection molded plastic coated with a rubberized material. Well, that rubberized material lifted off, guys. Let me tell you that. So, anyways, really, really nice. I really love these certificates of authenticity. They're just like really, really classy. And I wish that they had kept them for like the entire run, you know. There was a lot of things that Master Replicas kind of did near the tail end of their life cycle that, you know, was unfortunate. They, you know, kind of changed away from this, where you no longer had the signature of, you know, Mr. Rothman and Vogel. They did away with this nice little, you know, master prop replicas, right, certified. So this was removed, the bottom part. And then, you know, for a brief period of time, they even got rid of the signature picture until there was that uproar. And to think that they did that for Mark Hamill's New Hope lightsaber is just, I mean, come on, guys, you know? So I really, really liked this. And then, of course, the fact that they stopped, you know, giving you the signature edition box with the soft, you know, blue velvet cushioning was also really just, you know, sort of sad, sort of unfortunate that they didn't do those things either, you know. So in the end, a lot of that was changed. But, you know, there was a lot more hope here because this was the beginning of the line, right? Just the very, very start. And so they gave you everything. This nice envelope. We're going to put that away, and then we're gonna move on. I guess this is a good time, and then you can talk about just Christopher Lee's amazing, you know, history. I mean, he's a true legend in Hollywood. Of course, it kind of interesting how people know about him. He's kind of an iconic Dracula, for instance, right? The Hammer Brothers series of movies where he starred with, you know, Peter Cushing as, you know, Van Helsing, Dracula to Peter Cushing's Van Helsing. And it's sort of interesting that, of course, Peter Cushing played Grand Moff Tarkin in the original Star Wars: A New Hope, and then Christopher Lee, all these years later, you know, playing Count Dooku in the prequel trilogy. So people know Christopher Lee, I think, from that. Of course, he also was Saruman, and he had so many amazing roles, you know, near the, you know, when he was much, much older. I mean, when he was doing Saruman for Lord of the Rings and Count Dooku for Star Wars, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith, he was already, you know, in his 80s, which is just, if you think about it, just staggering that he's still, you know, working and kind of producing the quality of work at that age. And again, just so many iconic roles. A lot of people remember him as Saruman. You know, I remember him certainly very well from those days. And the fact that, you know, he brought such like gravitas to the role, and there's just so much respect for him, because, you know, I think he was the only person on the set who had actually physically spoken to J.R.R. Tolkien. You know, had actually had a conversation with Tolkien. Christopher Lee loved The Lord of the Rings so much that he read it once a year, every year for decades. And so his knowledge, of course, of the source material, you know, is just, I mean, encyclopedic and authoritative, right? And so he, again, added that touch of class to that. So there's that. And then in addition, many people don't know that, you know, he knew and was actually probably very, very good friends with Ian Fleming, who was the creator of James Bond. And Sir Christopher Lee was, you know, was, I think, a member of the British Secret Service. You know, he has certainly done some work during wartime. And rumor has it, and I think this is probably true, is that, you know, Ian Fleming based quite a bit of the characteristics of James Bond on Christopher Lee. So how cool is that, right? As sort of, you know, little nugget of information. And so there's, you know, there's that. And there's all sorts of like little odd things like that kind of hint at sort of the work that Christopher Lee might have done. back then. I think he was telling Peter Jackson how a person sounds if he had really gotten stabbed, in the lung and all sorts of things. That kind of, spoke back to such an interesting life. And apparently, he was also descended, from a long, like all the way long line. Oh my God, I forgot. There was a picture of him that showed how similar he looked to his ancestor. But yeah, I forgot. I knew I would know this if I looked it up again. But but yeah, he's descended from like royalty apparently, and so there you go. And he's also a very, very accomplished fencer. Very, very accomplished, and that was part of the reason, the impetus for him getting this particular, lightsaber and that very unique curved hilt, which is kind of this curved hilt, emphasizes the elegant nature of dueling and fencing, for which the actor himself was known for, and for which then they patterned Dooku's character after, his expertise with lightsaber fencing. So, for all of these reasons, it's really amazing just to get like Christopher Lee's signature, right? Alone. Like, even if you weren't a Star Wars fan, now that, he's unfortunately passed away, it would just be so cool just to have his signature on something like this, something so classy. And so, again, the fact that this is an amazing Star Wars lightsaber replica is just icing on the cake, because for such a giant, right, in entertainment, who's given us so many iconic roles, who's knighted, to have his signature is just like a really, really, wonderful thing, a really big deal. So now that we've done a little bit of that, talked a little bit of that, let's take this acrylic case off. Really like the quality of this acrylic case. And now that we have that going, I'm going to put this aside here. I can now put the black background, so the reflection isn't so bad. There's just so much glare with that polished case. So try to kind of get this good here. So you're now going to have a much, much better view of this lightsaber with a black background. It's gorgeous, isn't it? You can actually see my reflection for those of you who are eagle-eyed. My casual undershirt. So it's a very, very high legs. I don't know if the limited edition has something that high, because again, obviously the limited edition doesn't have as large a plaque. It's a little bit more rectangular. So maybe it's a little bit lower, but it's tricky because the lightsaber, of course, is curved, and so you have to have a little bit of elevation. But as with a lot of these versions, the signature edition is a little bit different. The display case, acrylic case, is a little bit different because it has to be a little bit taller to accommodate the increased height of the legs, which themselves are increasing height to accommodate this signature plaque. So showing you this from all different angles. We'll twirl it around soon enough. So let's start with the signature plaque. I like to put it on like this. So basically, this is, as you can see, the adhesive. And I just feel like this is probably the way that it was intended to be placed, like that. But the interesting thing is, depending on how you think of it, Some people like to place it like this, and then they turn the plaque around and they basically put it this way. I did that for myself, and I don't really think that it worked that well. I think my Empire Strikes Back Vader, I talked about how I did that, and I actually took it off and then re-stuck it. And that was definitely very difficult to do. This is really strong adhesive, even after all these years. And so, for whatever reason, I just like to put it this way. I think this is the right way. But if you look at other YouTube videos, Signature Edition Lightsaber Master Replicas YouTube videos, it goes both ways. So here you go. I'm now pretty sure that this is probably silver of some kind. And all of these are going to require polishing eventually. They get tarnished, there's little spots, and they just have to kind of, my advice is to tape it with Scotch tape to protect the signature area, especially the signature itself. If you want to be extra anal, you can put a little piece of paper over it and then tape it so that the tape doesn't actually even touch the signature. There was one person who he taped it and he just hit the tiniest little bit of hint of the permanent marker on the tape. But I've done this with all of my signature plaques to polish it, and I've never seen that, okay? So, your mileage may vary, but if you want to be extra, extra careful, you can just basically put a piece of paper and then just tape from that. Although I think it's a little bit tricky because, again, for Christopher Lee, this is another oddity about signatures. So, Samuel L. Jackson, he would just sign it, and his signature would often just be all over the place. It would just be outside of the signature area. And for Christopher Lee, I've seen quite a few, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's 4 or 5 YouTube videos with the signature edition Count Dooku lightsaber. And all of them, as well as various ones I've seen on eBay auctions or for sale posts on Facebook, his signature is always at the very top of the, of the area. Like if you look at here, look at my C. My C is like literally a millimeter from the edge. And he just tends to sign really high. I've never seen a Christopher Lee signature yet where the Christopher Lee is like actually centered in the signature area. It's just an oddity, which is neither here nor there, except that it does make it really tricky to polish, and you have to put the tape really, really close to the indentation. And I don't know, I think if you put the paper here and then you taped it, because of the nature of it, the paper is going to be moving around because you can't really tape right to the edge like that, So I think that if you're polishing, it's going to be, you're going to run into danger of polishing onto the signature because the paper is still moving, That's kind of the problem. If the signature was lower or more centered, you can put the paper over that and you can tape above that right up against the border and you'll be golden. But in my opinion, again, the chance of the permanent marker being lifted by the Scotch tape is so low, I feel like it's almost infinitesimal. And even if it did lift off a little bit, it's not like the whole thing comes off. You won't even be able to see the difference. Look at how polished this is. You can actually see me talking behind my camera phone. You can see the reflection, and that's pretty remarkable. So here he goes, Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, Count Dooku lightsaber. Christopher Lee, this is signature edition 702 out of 1,000. You can see the Master Replicas logo here and Lucasfilms here, and of course the back here. When I got this, there was like a dot up here. There was a dot of tarnish at the corner. There was 4 or 5 back there. So I polished it out with a combination of Moms and Brassos. But you'll see that even with the polishing, it's not perfect. Like there's still, if I go really close, you can see there's little tiny splotches here and there. I polished with a microfiber cloth and then also a very fine microfiber wipe that you use to clean your glasses. But even so, there's only so much you can do. You'll polish it, but there will be just like versions, certain areas of discoloration, just versions of polish that's more or less than the other. And I think you would have to polish it for a very, very long time to achieve perfect uniformity, okay? But as far as that goes, I think that this is a very beautiful plaque. I'm more than happy with it. If you look closely, you can definitely see that there's some differences. You can definitely polish some more if you really wanted to. You can see the differences down here, hopefully. There's like a little hint of the metal being different here versus further up. So, there are ways of making it even brighter, but I'm happy with the way this looks. If it tarnishes more, I may continue to work on polishing a little bit more, but this is good, okay? Another thing that's very different is that a lot of Christopher Lee signature plaques, like this area here where the signature is, sometimes gets really dirty. I don't know how did the tarnish kind of move down and just rub down there, but there'll be little dots. It would be tough, really, really difficult to see that. And here, as you can see, because it's essentially brand new, it wasn't even applied, it was just wrapped in plastic, you can see that the signature area is essentially pretty pristine. There's like the little tiniest smudge, the little tiniest smudge over here, but that was probably from the original signature itself. But by and large, this is a beautifully clean signature area versus others that just have like little dots and dirt all over the place. But here, again, it's essentially a pristine version of his signature in a pretty beautifully clean area here. So that's really nice. So I'm going to put that here for now. And so this is kind of hard to put, like this is too wide to put here. You could put it here, but it's really low. So, one way is to put it this way, but you're probably meant to put it right around here. And there's not a lot of room. You can put it right here. And again, because these are the old acrylic bases, the case actually goes inside the base. Whereas the newer ones, it's beveled, so the case goes outside the base. There's a bevel around it to do it. Because this is so old, it's the one where you actually slide it inside, okay? I'll take out the signature plaque a little bit later on when we start, handling the lightsaber. But I'm gonna move it back a bit, and that will give us the opportunity to showcase this, and we'll just sort of start twirling it around. Actually, I'll take this out of the way because now you can see the whole thing. So again, it's chrome plated nickel. You can see the interplay of the light on it. Very, very beautiful. There's even the Made in China sticker, believe it or not. It's another example where I'll probably just leave it be. I took it off of the other Vader signature edition versions because I just thought it was kind of tacky, but I'll just leave it on here for now for these guys. So against the black background and the black base, you can really get a nice appreciation for how this looks. The legs are also placed asymmetrically because of, again, the curve of the lightsaber itself. So Count Dooku, designed this for himself. He's a master of Form 2 of lightsaber combat called Makashi. Probably the most well-known practitioner, maybe the best of all time at it. And Makashi is a form that was created essentially specifically to duel other lightsaber wielding enemies. And Dooku was considered like one of the greatest, if not the greatest, duelists of his time. He was definitely up there with Yoda and Darth Sidious, Mace Windu. He was Yoda's Padawan, of course, and he was the master of Qui-Gon Jinn. So it was definitely quite a blow to have him turned to the dark side, and not only that, but to essentially lead the separatists. He was sort of the big bad, the front man, so to speak. Darth Tyrannus or Tyrannus of the entire Clone Wars, while Darth Sidious, the Emperor, well, not the Emperor, but Senator Palpatine worked behind the shadows. So that's sort of the lore behind the lightsaber. People are often, again, fond of speculating who would win between Count Dooku and Mace Windu. I think it's very, very close. I think that, Sith Lords fighting Mace Windu don't do super well, mainly because, Mace was a master, the inventor of Form 7 Vapad, and that the cornerstone of that is essentially mirroring or turning the aggression and hatred of the of your Sith opponent against them. And so the more steeped in the dark side you are, it doesn't really help because it just gets reflected, it's like a conduit through Mace and gets reflected back at you. And that's kind of what he did to gain the upper hand against Darth Sidious. So I'm not sure how well Dooku would have fared against Vapad using the dark side. But in terms of just sheer lightsaber dueling technique, it would have been very, very close between Dooku and Windu. So in a fair fight, who could say? Although I would be shocked if Dooku fought fair to begin with, right? That wouldn't make much sense. So this is where you put it. Probably right about here. You can see that it lines up with the metal here and here. So we're going to lift it up. It's extremely heavy. Extremely, extremely heavy. You actually feel the hilt. Move this back so we can actually see it. Yeah, I think this is actually probably the heaviest lightsaber. This is crazy. It's actually even heavier than Mace Windu's. So you can see the leather grips here. These are the grips that just lift right off over time. So you can see the ribs, the detail here. Again, you can't tell how heavy this is unless you actually feel it yourself. So this is how you're supposed to handle it, I suppose. Very beautiful lightsaber. I'm going to take this opportunity to shrink it just a little bit so it's a bit more easily seen. Yeah, beautifully chromed. This was definitely never touched by any human hand that's not wearing a mask, or not mask, that's not wearing gloves. You see the heavy nickel plating here. It's completely reflective. The brass buttons, accents here and here. You can actually hear the clicking as this thing goes. This is like ceramic right here. And here's the knob right there. This is probably what you use attached to the belt. Mace Windu has something similar here. There's a screw over here, pretty remarkable. This thing actually moves a little bit. And then this is 18 karat gold plate right here. You can definitely tell by the color of the gold. Little dust particles. And then the emitter right over here. And then, of course, the striking little extension right over here. This is where the lightsaber would emerge such a beautiful, unique design, this curved blade. And then, so Christopher Lee, of course, would hold it like this and duel with this. If you look at the undersurface, you can see this sort of translucent red, the trigger. Let's look at it from below. Yeah. I have to say this is definitely my favorite lightsaber design. Really, really amazing. Here we go. Did I mention how heavy this was? This definitely feels way more than like 1.5 pounds or whatever the brochure says. It feels like it's like literally double, if not triple, the weight of the Vader lightsaber. And then, of course, if you look at the base, you can see that it is the signature edition, 2002, Lucasfilm Ltd. Master Replicas LLC. So there it is, mirror polish. And I have to say, like, this is definitely probably the best quality lightsaber I've ever had. I mean, the one from Korea, the Vader dual signature is pretty close, but that one kind of had the infamous sticky grips, whereas this one is like, I have to say, like, this lightsaber is basically truly perfect. It's pretty crazy when you look at this. So yeah, I mean, hopefully just watching me handle this from all the different angles gives you an appreciation for the quality that went into this. I mean, look at this thing. This is like basically brand new, and it's like over 20 years old. So I guess they exist, and that's why some of these command such a high price tag. Versions of this that are out there that have been played with, that's been displayed, varying conditions in which it's being displayed, the temperature, the humidity, all these things, you're going to get smudges, you're going to get little scratches. It's 20 years old, guys. That's what it is. And, to come across a version of this where it's like essentially brand new in box, never been really handled by any regular, thumbprints or fingers, all glove all the time, that does command a difference in price. Here's that beautiful 18 karat gold again. I mean, I will tell you that when you have Mace Windu's lightsaber in your hand, you really do get a nice picture of what 18 karat gold plating looks like. So there you go. So just to gently place the back. So should go here. Whoop, there you go. And then just making sure that it's properly rotated. Yeah, looks good. Then the plaque goes here. We'll get it back up to 1x magnification. Absolutely beautiful specimen. So couldn't be happier with it. I'll move it around a little bit so you can again sort of see all of this. I do kind of want to make these, you know, they're long, they're filled with me rambling, but there's so few examples of signature edition master replicas. There's so few master replicas in general, you know, like lightsabers on YouTube. And then for there to be a signature edition one is so rare. So to be able to kind of show you all the different angles, the underside of it, the plaque, the base, all of this is, you know, I just wanted to kind of make that available out there for people. Because I remember, you know, when I was trying to look for one, I really enjoyed the unboxings by, you know, Boba Fett and Alex Hell. There's so few, right? So again, you get to see kind of what this thing looks like in all its glory. I only have space on my mantelpiece for 5 lightsabers, and it's taken up by the 4 Vader ones and Mace. So I have to kind of take one of them down. And this is so beautiful. There's no doubt that I am going to do that. And unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to take down the Vader from episode 3, right? Because that's the one without the signature. I have to put it somewhere else, but maybe another mantelpiece. But yeah, there you go. Hopefully, plenty of opportunity to look at it from all different angles. All right. Yep. We'll take this off. The black shows more detail, but once you take away the black background, there's more light though, right? So let's put this back. There you go. So this is the Count Dooku, Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, Master Replicas lightsaber. Hope you enjoyed that. Got a chance to appreciate this work of art in all its beauty. Until next time, do take care.